Welcome back to those members of the public who are viewing the Avon Pension Fund Investment Panel. It's Councillor Sean Stephen McGaw here, I'm the chair. We've just been in an exempt session discussing paper 9 on the risk management annual review. And after those discussions, we have some recommendations. So the recommendations of the committee aren't as are published in the public pack on the council website. There is an amendment to 2.3, and I will read that out when we get to it. So I'm proposing the recommendations as outlined, and I'll say them now. 2.1, we note Mercer's report reviewing the strategies and collateral position. 2.2, recommend to the committee that the existing trigger framework for the LDI strategy should be maintained. And then there's an amendment to 2.3, which will now read, recommend to the committee that the inflation hedge be reinstated outside of the trigger framework to the level it was prior to the restructure that took place in March, comma, and to further examine the implementation of restoring the hedge, then consider the necessity of further increasing the hedge following the conclusion of the RPI reform, and that would be delegated to our officers. So I'm proposing that. May I see a seconder to support those three recommendations?
Second that.
Second, Chair.
Thank you. I saw Chris stand there first. So Chris, for the minutes, thank you. And if I will take it everyone's in favour, and if anyone wants to abstain or vote against, please state in the chat function. No, I'm not seeing anyone have done that, so therefore it's passed unanimously. So thank you very much for our colleagues, three colleagues from Mercer's, and particularly Nick, for your presentation earlier. And now we move on to item 10 on the agenda, which is the Brunel Pension Partnership update on pooling. And I'm going to ask our officer, Liz Woodyard, to introduce this item. Over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Chair. This paper is just the normal update, which is for noting there's no issues that we need to make any decisions about. And quite a few of the appendices that we'll want to talk about are in exempt session, because I would like to give you an update on the transition. But before we move into exempt session, just a few points to highlight. They now manage 1.9 billion of our assets, plus another billion roughly in the LDI strategies, where they've appointed a manager under a contract, but we still manage that strategy. Since the June, the Diversified Returns Fund has been launched, and some of our Diversified Growth Fund assets have moved into that fund. We still retain a holding in Ruffer, which is the residual holding that we'll sell down in line with our strategic asset allocation. And the last BOB meeting was only last week. And so there wasn't anything that arose from that on the investment side, and a general update will be given at the next committee meeting on BOB. So unless I'm happy to take questions before we go into exempt session on aspects that are either in the report, covering report, or in the non-exempt appendices.
Thank you very much, Liz. I'll just wait a few seconds to see if anybody has any questions which are appropriate to ask in public. I'm not seeing any. Therefore, I have the honour again of reading out. The panel, having been satisfied that the public interest would be better served by not disclosing relevant information, proposes, in accordance with the provision of section 100 (a)(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, that the public should be excluded from the meeting for this item for the item of business because of the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Act as amended. I'm going to propose that, and I assume the committee will agree with that. If you disagree, please type abstain or against in the chat function. No, I'm not seeing anyone there. So goodbye to members of the public, and we'll be back later. And I'll just wait now until the screen says